Hey guys, Ryan from Command Point here with a quick announcement before we get into today's video. Starting Saturday, September 26th, the Transatlantic Open Kill Team Tournament will kick off, so make sure that you join our Discord if you haven't already, and follow us on social media to stay up to date on when we will be live streaming games from that tournament. Hello everybody, my name's Ryan. Welcome back to Command Point. Today I'm joined by Shane.
How's it going?
It's going good. We're here
for another YouTube video.
Yeah.
For the listeners.
Yeah.
We just hit 400 subscribers.
Yeah. Very cool.
Thank you all for subscribing and for listening. And we're going to keep putting out content for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Today we're going to be talking specifically about the idea of skill ceilings and skill floors in Kill Team, and faction-wise, which factions are easy to play and which factions are harder to play, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the gist of it. And there's other things like some factions are easy to play, but you can still play them at a higher level if you're a good player and stuff like that. So,
yeah.
I mean, I think it's worth a discussion. There's a lot of like varying degrees of difficulty when it comes to this game.
Mm-hmm. So do you want to start with the lower skill ceiling, as it were, or the higher skill ceiling factions? Which one do you want to start off with?
Let's start with the easy guys. Like, for example, I think a good one to start with would be like Death Guard. I think Death Guard is a really easy like faction to grasp.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of like crazy moving parts. They're pretty straightforward with what it is that you're actually like doing.
Mm-hmm.
You've got your beefy guys, you've got your chaff, and you can organize them however you want. But it's kind of there's not a lot of craziness going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's only like 3 different models, basically,
really,
right? There's only like 3 different data sheets.
I mean, really, and if you're playing at 100 points, which a lot of new players are, you're probably not even looking at the Terminators. So you're just looking at the Plague Marines and the Poxwalkers.
Mm-hmm.
This is a faction that I think this is like a great demo faction.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a new player can pick up these guys, and first of all, they're looking at 2 data sheets, so it's not overwhelming amount of information.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's very clear cut what the model's roles are. There's the Plague Marine fighter and there's a Plague Marine gunner.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. And then the Poxwalkers are going to do Poxwalker things.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's like a really good one to start with for a new player. They're simple. They're not overly complex. And I guess should we do a hard one now?
Yeah, I guess we can alternate through.
So I guess speaking of overly complex, I think Adeptus Mechanicus is a really good example.
Yeah. They have a lot of moving parts, and it's not just because they're literally cyborgs. With the things going on with like their omni specs, like there's a lot of auras you need to be cognizant of in order to maximize their effectiveness on the battlefield, basically.
Not to mention canticles.
Yeah, you got to remember the fact that you even have canticles.
And even if you do remember, it's so much information that you need to be considering every single phase. Like, when should I do this? What's a good time to use this canticle? Because if I use it now, I can't pick it later. That's a lot. And I think one thing that we kind of glossed over with Death Guard compared to AdMech is that, generally speaking, factions with more durability are going to be a little bit more forgiving for newer players.
Yes.
So Death Guard is very durable.
Yeah.
And AdMech are not very durable. You've got guys that die pretty easily.
Yeah. They're all toughness 3 for the most part.
Yeah.
Not any.
They have 6 up. They have 6
saves.
up invulns.
They have 6 up.
They're
invulns.
4 up base saves, and they're going to die pretty easily.
Yeah. Toughness 3.
Yeah. Everybody's toughness 3.
And then the other thing too is to consider when either educating a new person in how to play Kill Team, or picking up a new faction, just going in by yourself or whatever. The other thing to consider is the amount of options that you have when it comes to list building. So AdMech is kind of on the other end of the spectrum, whereas Death Guard, it's like you've only got like 2 to 3 data sheets, depending on what points level realistically that you're playing at. With AdMech, it's like you've got the Skitarii, you've got the Fulgurite Priests, you've got the Sicarian Infiltrators, and Rust Stalkers.
Yeah.
You've got,
and then
you
even
have
the
so many
Scutari.
options when it comes to like list building.
Yep.
It can be very overwhelming to fit everything that you think you need in like a tournament command roster that's only 20 models when you have so many options.
They've only got 3 data sheets, but it's like each data sheet has like 2 different types of models that are like that fill very different purposes.
Yeah.
Like the Fulgurites and the Corpuscari are both like that you have to approach when you take those models at very different times. It's not as simple as, gunner, fighter.
Yeah.
Right. And then like even the Scutari, like the Vanguard and the Rangers, they have different rules and they have different weapons that they take.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, the differences are subtle. So you need to be like cognizant of all of that. I think when you're like list building and stuff like that.
Yeah. So back to easier to play kill teams. Necrons, specifically Novokh subfaction Necrons.
Yeah, I mean, this one's like the infamous one where it feels like every time there's a tournament, there's like some guy who is like been playing the game for like 2 months or less. Just happens to show up with Necrons and
like makes it to the quarterfinals.
Yeah. And it's not a coincidence. Not to take anything away from those players, but it's Novokh Necrons are very straightforward. You advance into cover, and it's an all melee team.
Yeah.
So first of all, you don't even have to worry about the shooting phase.
Mm-hmm.
So it's even easier for
a
new player to pick up. You just advance into cover, and then you charge, and then you kill things.
Yeah, that's
and it's very forgiving. Because durability is huge. Again, you're not getting the toughness 5 on every guy. Actually, you're getting the Lich Guard toughness 5, and then all of the flayed ones and everyone else are going to be T4. But I mean, reanimation protocols, they have solid saves. It's very straightforward. I mean, like you can make like a checklist of or one of those what are those things where it's like, do I do this? It's like yes, no.
Oh, a flow chart.
Yeah, you can make like a flow chart of like how to play Necrons in any given game.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. The flayed one, and they have no war gear basically. There's like subtle things like you can give your Lich Guard an invuln save and a worse weapon.
Yeah.
Or like you can if you're running like an immortal, like you have 2 weapons you can choose from.
Yeah.
Like a flayed one though, it's just there's no customization. It's just the same thing.
No.
Every guy is just a melee guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Necrons are super simple.
Mm-hmm. And you don't ever got to worry about the morale phase.
Yeah,
because all your guys are like leadership 10.
Really good point. Yeah, you don't have to be thinking about breaking. You don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Which I mean, that's like just another thing to think about when you're playing a lot of kill teams.
Yeah, they've got a lot built into them, but it's like you don't need to remember the things that are built into them.
Yep. And Admech, who we already mentioned, they're actually like kind of scared of the morale phase because they break surprisingly easily.
Yeah. What's like the leadership for like
I think the Rangers and the Vanguards, they might have 6 or it's 7 at most, but they can't take that much before they start getting scared.
Yeah.
Yeah though. So next one that's got a
higher skill
ceiling, I would say is in Astra Militarum.
Okay.
When we talked about them a lot on the podcast that we did, the faction deep dive, but there's, again, it's like what we talked about with Admech, there's a lot of moving parts.
Mm-hmm.
You've got orders to worry about. You've got all these different models, like the Blackstone Fortress models that you can run. Like obviously some are easier than others.
Yeah.
You can throw Gottfried out there and
it's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, you don't need to do much thinking. You just throw him out and
he just eats wounds and yeah.
Alternatively, you've Ryan and Rouse, who are they've got a lot of rules. They're pretty complex. I mean, they're moving after shooting. They're interacting with each other in like unique ways and buffing each other and like they're very fragile and they die super easy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then there's Pius Vorn, who's again she's kind of a flex model.
Yeah,
she's not that durable.
So you got to be careful with her. Would you use her more as like a counter punch than like a straight on?
Yeah, I like her against hordes.
Yeah,
just you got that flamer. You got a lot of attacks at AP1.
Yeah,
And then obviously the regular guards they die very easy.
Yeah.
So it's, again, we're looking at very like squishy models. Granted, they can take really strong weapons. So again, we're talking about high skill ceiling. So in the hands of a good player, I think these guys have one of the highest ceilings in the game. You can play them to such a good level. Just like outmaneuver people.
Yeah, they have so many abilities and opportunities when it comes to their tactics, and then, like you mentioned before, the voice of command, the orders that they can give out, where they can just interrupt the normal flow of the game.
Yeah,
that a newer player who's just picking up Astra Militarum might not even really like consider.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about mechanicals. You have to do that every single round. Voice of command is another thing where it's just this extra weird rule that no other faction gets, that you just have to do every single movement or shooting phase. So yeah, that's a tough one to play. Not one that I would recommend for new players. A lot of different data sheets too. It's pretty complicated.
Do you have any other ideas for the lower skill ceiling?
I do. I think one that's really good, and we talked about this a while back in the pod, and I think it's one that like might be like outside the box a little bit, but I think Sisters of Silence are a really good like starter faction.
That makes sense.
I mean, they've 3 models that you can take. You've got a flamer, a bolt gun, and a sword.
Yeah.
Just that's your choices.
Yeah.
They all basically, those models are one data sheet.
Yeah.
They just carry a different weapon.
They completely shut down the psychic phase.
Yep.
So that's something you don't even need to consider.
They shut down the psychic phase, so you don't have to worry about psychers, which is something that can really hurt a new player.
Yes.
Like, I remember my first time playing against psychic. It's not fun.
No. It's like, what do I do against this?
Yeah.
Oh, the answer is to throw more bodies in front of the guys that I don't want to die this turn?
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like an answer to me.
Yeah. It's a really feels bad moment for a new player having to go up against like Grey Knights or something.
Yeah.
And I think Sisters of Silence, like, they allow you to not worry about that so much.
Yeah.
I would also say they have pretty high leadership too. I think they're like leadership 8 and 9 on every model. So not Necron level, but you don't have to worry so much about nerve tests, and you're not taking enough bodies where you're realistically going to have to worry about it too much, unless you're getting like your models are getting wiped off the board, but that's not that likely. I mean, they're toughness 3, but they have 3 up armor saves. They're a forgiving faction in the sense that there's not very many rules for you to forget. They're super straightforward, and I don't think they're like really bad either. So they can like stack up decently well.
So for another high skill ceiling kill team, I have Genestealer called down.
For sure.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Yeah. It's just because I think they have a pretty decent amount of weapon options, and they've got a lot of options in terms of models. Like, I don't even know how to play them, honestly.
Yeah. I mean,
I've never really touched them. I've only seen other people play against them, or they've been played against me. And like, we've seen like Matt H take them to like second place. And I think he's probably won a tournament.
He's won some pods. Yeah.
Yeah. He's won some pods with Genestealer Cult too. So like, it's pretty obvious that,
I mean, right at
you can get
Wars.
Up there, but it's like, Freak Wars, the Genestealer Cult player won
second place.
Second place.
Took finals.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, it's obvious that like the potential is there, but it's like a newer player can't just pick up this faction and expect to dominate in a competitive tournament setting.
Yeah, they're tough. I've played them a little bit. I've dabbled, and they're tough nut to crack, but I can see it. And I know a lot of other players can see it, and we've seen the success before. So this is just a case of, you have really like glass cannon models with really good kill potential, but they die so easily. Yeah. I mean, toughness 3, 5 up. There's no invuln. They're all 1 wound, except for the aberrants, who go down pretty easily.
Also die very fast. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as far as 2 wound models go, it's pretty rough playing as them, and their leadership isn't the greatest either.
No.
I mean, it's better than like orcs, but
I mean,
Still,
that's not,
you're running so many bodies most of
Yeah.
the time that it is pretty easy for you to fail that break test, and then just the game's over.
Yeah.
Like you can get your tough guy, your strong guys into combat, but like if the opponent fights first, they don't have to hit very hard for you to die.
I don't care if that guy is a rock saw cutter or a rock cutter.
Yeah, rock cutter.
You just decisive strike with whatever model is in combat with them.
With your like,
and it's like
you're like Deathwatch gunner who's just has his fists.
Yeah,
he's just got like 2 attacks.
He'll just punch him to death.
Yeah. You get a wound through and the guy's got a 5-up save. It's like that's probably it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's other models like orcs who have a 6-up save, which is worse, but it's like at least they're T4, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, Genestealer cult, they're T3. There's no win vol unless you take the one sub faction and you get the 6-up. But like, it's tough.
Yeah. Can you think of any other lower entry level kill team factions?
I think on the flip side of Sisters of Silence and being able to play without worrying about the psychic phase, I think Grey Knights are a really good one.
I was going to say that too.
Yeah, to like learn how those mechanics work and like firsthand play a faction like that and like know their weaknesses and know their strengths. And they're very forgiving because you're putting out so many mortal wounds.
Yeah. It gives you an opportunity to learn from the jump every phase of the game.
Yeah.
And that they play the psychic phase really well. So
yeah, I mean the core
really forgiving there,
like a normal standard Grey Knights list,
mm-hmm.
it's only one data sheet.
Yeah,
it's just a Grey Knight, and then you got the Justicar leader, who's just a Grey Knight.
Yeah, and then they've got like a couple, like 2 or 3 weapon options, I think, when it comes to like the gunner model. So
yeah, and there's really only like there's the silencer and the incinerator and
mm-hmm.
then the side cannon. You're never going to take the side cannon. So it's really, you got 2 gunner options and then the weapon options, like maybe your combat and your zealot, if you run those guys, are going to take a special weapon, but otherwise everybody's just going to run the 2 falchions.
Yeah.
It's a simple faction to play. And I think it's a good one to start with.
It's a simple life.
Yes. Cybele. It's all day.
Yeah. I think a faction that I'm curious to hear where you think they fall is Heretic Astartes. Because Heretic Astartes, they seem pretty straightforward, but I feel like in order to like really, really run them like to like their most effective, you need to understand all the nuances of the movement and the fight phases. And those are like probably like the most complex phases for a newer player to understand, really.
Yeah. I think they have a relatively high skill floor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think the ceiling though is up there. It really is.
Yeah.
Especially if you're on a board that like allows it. So I mean, on a super open board, it's going to be pretty tough.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, on a closed board or like an arena board, the sky's the limit for a team like that. You can really get away with so much.
Mm-hmm.
But you've got like, the thing is, your berserkers they're Marines basically, but they're not that durable.
Yeah.
Like really. And your cultists are like
also not durable.
Yeah, they have like toilet paper skin.
Yes. Oh God.
They're even squishier than like a Genestealer cult model.
Uh-huh.
And the leadership isn't great, especially if like your aspiring champ or your berserker champ dies.
Mm-hmm.
It's sad times if you hit that break test. Yeah, I mean, I'd say they're pretty high skill floor, really high skill ceiling, but I don't think they're quite as difficult as like an AdMac or a Guard or like even a Genestealer cult. I think is easier.
Yeah.
Or is harder. I think Heretic is easier than Genestealer cult is what I was trying to say.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Space Marines? Because a lot of people like that'll be their first faction. Because Space Marines, it's like, oh, I'm getting into 40K. Oh, I walk into my friendly local game store and there's a literal like cardboard, like a 9-foot tall cardboard cutout of a freaking Primaris Marine. Hell yeah, I want to play those cool guys.
Yeah, I mean, whether we like it or not, Space Marines are like they are the de facto like starter faction for like 90% of players.
Yeah, and like 90% of the starter boxes.
Yeah, so it's it's with some sadness, because I know there's a lot of people listening, that I have to say that I do not think that they should be a starter faction. It's not so much the in-game part of it that is hard. It's the roster building,
Yes.
and knowing what's good and what to take. And it's probably one of the hardest teams to build a roster for.
Yeah.
Just because you have so many options, and you need to get it kind of perfect, and you need to know exactly what you're going to be up against, and what your strengths are.
And I mean, like, I thought when we were building our Space Marine rosters for the Bats tournament, I thought we got really close to an almost perfect list. But like, even then, in certain matchups, we found ourselves taking like suboptimal choices, or having to run like combination rosters where we're not going to be getting a sub faction bonus out of it.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I bet that if you were to like pile all the stats of like every kill team tournament like ever, I bet that Astartes would be on the very low end of win rate.
Oh yeah.
Just, I mean, there's a reason that people
seen that
just
in tournaments.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think there's a pretty good reason why like Astartes do not do well. Like 90% of Astartes players do not do well.
Yeah.
They're not easy to just pick up and win with.
Yeah.
You really need to know what you're doing and what you're going for.
All right. Can you think of any other factions that have like a really high, really high skill floor? Really high skill floor?
So as far as other really like tough teams to just pick up and play, I think both Asuryani and Druhkari, more so Asuryani.
Really? I almost want to say I disagree with you. I almost think Druhkari are a harder team to pick up and play.
Oh, weird. I don't know. I feel like Druhkari, they just get so much, and I think they're a little bit more forgiving than Asuryani. At least that's my opinion. I can see the other way.
Well, the thing is, they get so much, but the thing is, you need to remember that you're getting all that.
That's true.
You need to remember all of the power from pain abilities that you're getting. You need to remember that your mandrakes are -1 to hit. You need to remember your freaking sub-faction bonus.
Yeah, your sub-faction.
There's a lot to remember in order to really run them effectively.
Yeah, and if you're playing witches, you got to remember the combat drugs. And,
right.
I mean, yeah, I definitely see that. As far as remembering rules, Druhkari are a bit more steep in that sense. I do think, like in actual gameplay, I think they're a bit more forgiving, though. Yeah. Assuming you are keeping up with the rules.
Yes.
Asuryani are, I mean, both of these factions really high skill ceiling. Like you can play them to such a good level, and we've seen that. But yeah, I mean, I think that like the chaff. I don't want to say that a Mandrake is like a chaff unit because it's 12 points, but it's going to be like your go-to kind of flex guy. Yeah. And you compare that to like a lot of the flex guys on like the generic models you're going to take on an Eldar list, like like a Guardian Defender, or some people are running Storm Guardians, and they're pretty weak. Like they die very easy. Yeah. And like even Howling Banshee, and if you improperly like position it, it's gone. Even the Exarch with the 2 wounds. Yeah. It's pretty tough. You got to be careful with those guys. And Eldar too. I mean, they're no slouches they have a million rules, right? Yes. I mean, especially like you look at a striking Scorpion alone, it's like they have rules. They ignore obscurity and shooting. They get an extra attack on a roll of 6. They get a mortal wound on a 6 at the beginning of the fight phase and a separate roll. And it's like, whoa. And then the Howling Banshee Exarch, it's like, it rerolls charges. It's -1 to hit in the fight phase. You ignore reactions, and like when you do charge, like your opponent can't overwatch or fall back. It's like, ooh, yeah, there's so much. Yeah.
Well, that about wraps it up for this video. Thank you guys for listening and tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this with any newer Kill Team players that you know of. Thank you all, and we will see you in the next one.